Mac, if I were to ask you for a Mount Rushmore,
Okay.
before you go any further, you're
Okay.
probably wondering, wait a second, Goo, what is a Mount Rushmore?
Yeah, what exactly is that?
Big rock, 4 faces.
Gotcha.
Of characters from the hit sitcom Friends. Yes,
That's-
Friends, the same Friends that we are doing trivia for at Idle Hands Craft Ales, 89 Commercial Street in Malden, Massachusetts, tomorrow. Today's Goose Day. So tomorrow.
This Wednesday, 7 p.m.
Oh, this is the longest question of all time.
What a tease.
We are 30 seconds into this question.
Yeah.
A Mount Rushmore, 4 faces on a rock, of Friends characters. Can you do it?
I can come up with 3, Goo. It's a toss-up for the 4th. So easily to me, Ross and Rachel are there. Like, as annoying as Ross can be, it's purposeful. And it's, as you've spoken about many a times, in the later seasons, he's by far the funniest character because of the zaniness.
After his mental breakdown of his second marriage falling apart, that's when he just goes off the rails, and he's great.
And then, of course, Rachel has to be there. Jennifer Aniston, could argue the hottest person on the planet 30 years running now. Whether it be her nipples, her hair, whatever it is, she's got to be on the list, whatever you want to attribute
Whether
it
to. Be her nipples.
And plus, the core of the show is Ross and Rachel, so that makes sense. And then, Goo, I think, at least for our podcast, a very obvious face on this Rockwall 4 Faces is Paul Rudd's Mike Hannigan, who comes in season 8 or 9.
Might have been 7, but don't quote me.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Maybe that'll be a trivia question.
Also, Mike might be a part of one of the funniest episodes where him and Ross have to hang out and they don't see eye to eye.
And then, Goo, the 4th one, it's such a toss-up for me. There's a lot of like good one-offs or characters are there for 2-3 episodes. I gave it to Marcel the Monkey, the real MVP of season 1.
Now, if I were to ask you how many monkeys played Marcel, would you have an answer for me?
Great question. Glad you had a follow-up there. Here's some Marcel facts for you guys sitting at home there. In the 8 episodes that Marcel appeared on Friends, the monkey was played by 2 different female monkeys, Goo. How about that? A little gender-bending monkey there. The 2 monkeys were named Katie and Monkey. The second monkey was named Monkey. Unfortunately, Monkey passed away, but Katie continued to work, and she appeared on such shows as The Loop and 30 Rock. You're
going to ask me for my Mount Rushmore? Yeah.
The critically acclaimed hit show Friends that ran from the 90s until 2001 or 2003? 4?
Yeah.
All right. There you go. If you had to name 4 characters from that show that you had to carve faces into a mountain on, who would you name?
Now, I'm glad that you asked me because, this does tie into the fact that we are doing Friends trivia.
We're doing trivia this week.
Yeah. Craft Ales, 89 Commercial Street, Malden, Massachusetts.
7 p.m.
7 o'clock.
Yep.
Wednesday night, which will be tomorrow if you're listening on Goose Day.
Yeah, nice
or tonight if you're listening on Wednesday.
How about that?
So I actually accidentally wrote down 6 names, having forgotten what a Mount Rushmore is. And more thinking about how there's 6 main characters in the Friendcast.
This saves us from a Goose Juicy 6-pack.
It does, but I will also say there are 3 obvious ones. There is Ross, there is Rachel, and there's Mike Hannigan. And then for my 4th, I'm going off the board. There are 3 episodes, I believe, in season 3. It might be season 2, where Joey moves out of the apartment from Chandler, and Chandler needs a new roommate. And the guy that moves in is played by Evan Goldberg, and his name is Eddie Manook. He is electric.
That's right. I forgot about Eddie. That's a good one.
Eddie is a phenomenal character. He at one point says that he has a pet goldfish, and it's just a goldfish cracker. He laughs like this. And to get rid of him, what they do is Joey moves back in, and Eddie shows back up, and they say, "You don't live here."
Just classic 90s hijinks right there, Goo.
And that resolved the issue. That was the end of that chapter. Eddie never showed up again. Or did he? I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess based on our Mount Rushmores here, let us know as the folks at home who the 4th face is on the mountain outside of Ross, Rachel, and Mike.
Oh, I also have a shout out for Frank Buffet Jr. and Roy the Stripper, played by
I considered Giovanni Ribisi for my 4th as well.
One 2, 3, yeah! Goo! Jaws 3! Goo! King of Queens! Goo! Meryl Streep! Entertainment!
I'm Goo.
I'm Mac.
And for the fourth time, we are back for Mount Rushmore.
Sequels are never good.
Oh,
Third
fuck
time's not the
me.
charm. But fourth, number 4. That's
Mac,
the magic right there.
Okay, so I'm going to change this for the podcast title.
Okay,
But
all right.
YouTube here, actually just on the bottom of the screen, I'll actually change it for YouTube too.
All right.
It says Mac Zack, Mount Rushmore's dash for life. I'm going to change it to Mac Zack dash Mount Rushmores.
Oh, I like that, Goo. You know what?
Get it?
Hey, almost a missed opportunity. You caught it, though. We figured it out.
We
there,
caught
so
it. I'm
that's
glad
nice.
we didn't figure it out years down the line like we used to do for most of our problems on the show.
If you're new to the program here, 3 times prior, we have gone through lists of Mount Rushmores. That's what this episode is. Topic, best 4 things about it, move on.
Yep, because these are great for TikTok.
We're gonna
Great
get
2-minute subjects.
We're gonna get 16 segments out of this episode.
The producer is saying that we need this.
It's pretty simple here. Don't overthink it. Topic, we'll talk about it briefly, maybe extensively. Who knows? Maybe there'll be some arguments along the way, and we'll give you the 4 best things from said topic.
Correct. And also, a Mount Rushmore, just to remind you once again, picture 4 faces that are plastered across a giant mountain.
That's what the Sheryl Crow and Kid Rock song is about. Picture.
Correct. So, Mac, I guess the best way to start this off, now, usually Mount Rushmores are you guys sending us these topics in, but because we did this last second, I just scribbled down 15 topics, and here we are.
2 of them I don't really care for, but the other 12, 13, excited for here. Good.
Okay.
Right.
Hopefully you like this one. Hey, Mac, Sir Michael Caine has announced his retirement from acting. Can you give me a Mount Rushmore of Sir Michael Caine characters?
First of all, I'm Michael Caine.
I'm Michael Caine.
I think he's like 90, 91 years old. So credit
He's
to him
90 or 91 years old.
for living a life. Goo, we have 2 off the top here that we totally agree on. Not to spoil your Mount Rushmore, but I think Scrooge from the Muppets Christmas Carol is a very easy entry into the list here. That came out in 92, I believe.
95.
I think it's 92.
I think you're right. Just ignore me.
And then, of course, and I don't want to, Ebenezer Scrooge, played by Michael Caine, who we now know always is a good guy. It's when you go back and watch that, it's kind of awesome to see him as like an old cheap cunt.
But not only that, it's him acting off the Muppets.
Yeah.
And he's phenomenal. He's the
so
only
good.
person, I think. There might be more people. I don't care. But it's mostly him and Muppets, and he is fantastic in that.
And not for nothing, he did have an acting career the 30 years prior to this.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever seen an early Michael Caine movie. This is probably the earliest Michael Caine movie I've seen. So credit to Michael Caine on this one. And then Goo, as much as I am not the largest Nolan Dark Knight trilogy fan, Michael Caine is such a good Alfred Pennyworth. He's so good in the role of sort of uncle father, where he's trying to mold Bruce Wayne, but he's sort of letting him do his thing. But every once in a while, he's got to check him and be real with him. He's absolutely perfect in that role.
Now, I think we can agree that he's not great because he's barely in Rises. Do you like him better in Begins or in The Dark Knight?
I like The Dark Knight because there's a little bit of a rift in their relationship as well. Whereas Begins, he's just sort of happy to have him back, right? Where
in Begins, he's almost just giving him like inspirational quotes. And he does do a bit of that in the second one, but he also gives more into his backstory.
Yeah, and in the second one, he's like, I'm not so sure you should be doing this whole thing. And then obviously that plays
down to fullest
to the third movie. But Goo, you can't forget the closing image of Dark Knight Rises. Michael Caine going for a little brunch in France, presumably. And who does he see? Batman and Catwoman.
Or it's all in his imagination.
Or it's Inception. Yes.
Also, there is an old urban legend, and maybe I just made this up in my head, but there is a cut of The Dark Knight Rises at Bruce's funeral where Alfred sings Danny Boy.
You know what? I'm glad that didn't make it into the film. Goo,
so we never happened. I don't know.
We agree on those 2.
Yeah.
And then let me give you 2 here. that I think are probably different than yours two. I've never seen the movie, but I've got to give it credit. He plays a character named Hoagie in Jaws: The Revenge, which is very
I have
fitting
seen this.
because
Yeah.
that's the 4th Jaws movie. This is the 4th one of these, so why
Yeah.
not? And then an actual good role, Goo. He plays Jasper, a drug dealer sort of character in Children of Men, the Clive Owen movie. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie. Really good movie. He's great in this role. A very non-Michael Caine type of role as well.
So I do love Jaws: The Revenge, but I'm not going to insult the man by bringing up his worst movie. He's retiring, Mac. A little.
The internet told me he outacted everyone in that movie, though. So not his worst.
Oh, he absolutely did. Besides the shark, which does roar in the movie.
Of course.
When it gets stabbed, it roars. I also like him as Arthur Tressler in Now You See Me.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'll tell you what. I never pegged you as a Now You See Me fan. This is at least the 3rd time you've brought the movie up on the franchise.
The first Now You See Me is good. The first Now You See Me is a fun old time.
It is. It's a dandy of a time.
And then also credit to me, I forgot to put a 4th one down here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I just saw a YouTube clip or a TikTok clip or reel of him on some British talk show talking about how when he was in the Philippines one time, someone thought that he was a drug dealer. And they said, "Oh, aren't you Mike Cocaine?" So that's my 4th favorite role.
Okay. All right. You didn't want to do Nigel Powers there? I thought you were.
Nigel Powers, Finn McMissile, the guy from Cider House Rules,
to take
Alfie.
Me to the fair.
Yeah,
it seems he doesn't care.
So we never saw any of his actual great movies, apparently, because if you look up like Alfie and Hannah and Her Sisters,
the from
man
1965 up until Jaws 4, it seems like he was in a lot of good movies we've just never seen.
Educating Rita.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Why not?
Hey, credit there. Great acting career. I liked you in Kingsman as well.
Yes, also actually very good in Kingsman.
Yes. All right, Mac, now let's go on to a topic that a director that we speak of often and we kind of throw shade upon. And
I'll tell you, Goo.
Mm-hmm.
He throws shade upon himself. He brings it upon himself.
He does, but he's one of the greatest directors of all time.
This exercise made me realize I don't think I really like Scorsese a ton. I like him. 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 I don't know if I love him.
We've already said on the podcast that maybe the best movie of all time is his movie.
I agree. And then after that, I'm not so sure I love any of his movies.
All right, Max. So picture this. A giant rock, 4 gentlemen upon it. You people sometimes say, like, this is the best of. Can you give me the Mount Rushmore of Martin Scorsese flicks? Sorry, films. Sorry, cinema. Movies?
We can agree on Goodfellas. We also might agree it's the greatest movie of all time. So that's there. And then from there, Goo, I really, really like Casino. I would have it in my 4. I don't know if I love that movie. I do love Sharon Stone in that movie. And then I have a really hard time adding movies to this top 4. I guess Wolf of Wall Street. I'm sort of a Wolf of Wall Street apologist. I loved that movie the first time I saw it. I totally understand the critiques and why people don't care for that movie. I still think it's a great time. It's a great watch. It's a fun movie, especially for 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Max also was on Quaid's all of high school.
Also Marge Bob, so you get
Marge
that.
Bob. Oh, that was the intro to Marge Bob.
Yeah, so good. And then
and Christine Milioti.
Christine Milioti.
Yeah.
I would put Taxi Driver 4th, I think, because of his classic movies. It's the one I like most. But I don't love that movie.
You a question, though, and this just popped into my mind. Obviously, it's a great movie. Is it thought of more for Scorsese or for the performance that Robert De Niro gives?
For sure, more De Niro over Scorsese, I would say. And like, because the other I haven't seen Raging Bull. Maybe if I had
Raging Bull's amazing.
So it would be on the list. So maybe that's an oversight for me. But then you talk about like his other classic works, and I don't really love any of them. So that's my 4. Goodfellas, Casino, Wolf of Wall Street, Taxi Driver.
Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and then I know you don't like it. I know that we kind of poo-poo the ending of it because it's stupid and we get it. There's a rat. But The Departed is a good movie.
The Departed has so many things that are fucking stupid in it. A lot of really dumb things. I can't even, I was on the Boxers podcast, I don't know, 6 years ago to give you all the things I hated about Batman.
The Hoopsters podcast?
about Batman Begins, I could do it about The Departed too. I could give you 40 minutes and all the stupid shit in that movie. I'm sure there's a YouTube breakdown out there somewhere. I do not like that movie.
Shout out to the king of comedy, Bringing Out the Dead. I actually really like that's a Scorsese. Nicolas Cage, he drives an ambulance. He's, deprived of sleep. That's a very good movie. Gangs of New York. And I also do like Casino.
Yeah, Gangs of New York, a bit like Taxi Driver, where I don't know if it's the best movie, but you definitely remember it for a singular performance. Obviously, Daniel Day-Lewis as Billy the Butcher, and that is pretty incredible. Billy? Is his name Billy? Did I just add Billy? It might just be the Butcher.
We also recently spoke about, and this is during our award-winning Canceled Movies Part 6 podcast. Where we were like, oh, who do you take? Because there's a bunch of canceled Sylvester Stallone movies, canceled Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, and we were kind of between. We're like, oh, I like the actor more here, but the personality here. And so I ask you, Mac, can you give me a Mount Rushmore of Sylvester Stallone characters? And then I will follow that up after we both do this with Arnold Schwarzenegger characters.
So obviously Rocky's on there. I don't need to argue about Rocky. I'm lower on the Rocky movies than most, but that's on the list. I think his singular best performance is as John Rambo in First Blood. I think that's his best performance ever. It's one of my favorite movies ever. That's on my list, Rambo. And then from there, you can kind of get a little fun with it. John Spartan from Demolition Man.
I love that one.
Character.
I love that character.
Yeah, so we can agree on that. That's in the 4. And then the 4th one, I feel like you got to add like a stupid one in there. So I went for either King Shark or Stakar Ogord. Any of the James Gunn roles. He's actually pretty good in Guardians 2 as Stakar Ogord.
So I did Rocky Balboa, Rambo, Gabe Walker from Cliffhanger, and then also John Spartan from Demolition Man.
I also haven't seen Copland, and I heard he's very good in that. So maybe that
I've heard that as well.
List. Yeah.
And then honorable, you mentioned King Shark, and then also Judge Dredd.
Yes, true. Yep, you could throw Dredd in there. Yep.
So now we go to Arnold Schwarzenegger, the person that I sided with. I might be on the right side of history with this one, because when you ask me for the best Arnie characters, the 4 best, I think you can run down a list of like 10 that are pretty goddamn good.
I think this exercise makes it clear Arnie greater than Stallone. However, I still think John Rambo's the best out of any of these characters.
Ben Richards from The Running Man, T-800 from T2, Detective John Kimball from Kindergarten Cop might be my favorite. Kindergarten Cop, sorry, not the fish, carp, but
not like a Magikarp.
No. And then Agent Harry Tasker from True Lies.
Yeah, I agree on 3 of those. The T-800, specifically from T2, is an awesome character. Harry Tasker in True Lies, another great character, and he's pretty funny in that movie.
Yeah.
Detective John Kimball in Kindergarten Cop, he's also very funny in that movie. And then Goo, I'm stunned you didn't include this on yours. Mr. Freeze. You got to put Mr. Freeze in here.
I think that we can definitely agree that what puts Arnie over the top, not only is he's a great action star, but he can deliver comedy. He can do it.
He's a sneaky good comedic actor. I agree with you. Yeah.
He's funny. He is charming.
And I feel like he doesn't take it all too seriously. You don't see him, waxing poetic about certain things.
And then also shout out to Predator, Commando, and of course, Howard Langston from Jingle All the Way.
Yeah, we probably should have included Dutch from Predator, but what are you going to do?
Hey, I mean, I will also say that some of his characters are the same.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't you fucking say that. Hey, Mac, happy Halloween.
Thanks,
By the way,
we'll
have,
well.
I have a spooky topic for next week. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it involves a ton of math. I hope you're excited.
Sick. Super excited.
Now, Mac, let's say that there's a monument in a park somewhere in South Dakota.
I believe so. Yep.
That has 4 presidents' faces on there. They call it the Mount Rushmore. If I were to ask you for a Mount Rushmore, by the way, those are definitively the 4 best presidents, no questions asked.
That's why they put them on a rock.
The 4 best scream queens from horror movie history, who do you go with?
So, obviously, Jamie Lee Curtis has to be included.
Number 1
here.
with the bullet. It doesn't matter what, because not only is it Halloween, not only is it the fog or prom night, like keeps going back to horror stuff. And then she also pokes fun at horror stuff by doing things like, was it called Scream Queens on Fox?
Yeah, she was in a show called Scream Queens. Correct.
Yeah. Boom.
Yep.
Roll credits.
I think she defines and sort of changed cinema a little bit. You know, you had like the role her mother played, Janet Leigh in Psycho.
Mhm.
You had these like damsel in distress Scream Queens. And then Jamie Lee Curtis comes along in Halloween. And a couple years before, The Last House on the Left has a similar character. But a badass female who's like, can do both things. She's a Scream Queen, but also can fight back. And that sort of changed horror movies as we know it. So Jamie Lee Curtis for sure, number one with a bullet. Then Goo, like a new age Jamie Lee Curtis, I think you could say is Neve Campbell.
Agreed.
I think she does that role just as good as Jamie Lee Curtis, if not better. But Jamie Lee Curtis was first, so give me Neve Campbell. And then I have to include Sarah Michelle Gellar in this. She gets a little bit of a credit for Buffy here, even though we're talking more of movies, but I had to include her here on my list. And I want to include a more new age one because I think there's two really strong candidates. Number one being Mia Goth, who's been in several successful horror movies over the last couple of years. Number two, Jenna Ortega for the same reason. So I think
feel like Ortega is more macabre stuff, though, not necessarily. So obviously she's been in a couple horror things, but I feel like it's more spooky stuff than straight horror.
I mean, that's fair enough, but I think she's in the running for like best new age. So pick either one of those two for my fourth.
So my fourth, so first off, my third, I would go with Jennifer Love Hewitt. Just fantastic.
Yeah, but I feel
whatever
like
the hell her character
I
name
mean, I
was
agree. I would
in-
take. I'm not going to argue JLH over
Yes.
SMG because I agree with you. I just feel like SMG's been in more Scream Queen worthy roles.
You say Scream Cream?
Oh, don't look at my pants.
Is that usually what you do when it happens?
Yeah,
Ah!
they hit a certain octave in them.
It's like I said, poking fun of yourself. Jennifer Love Hewitt, Boy Meets World, Jennifer Love Pfefferman.
True that.
And then I would go with, for my fourth, Heather Langenkamp from the Nightmare movies, where she's not just in every Nightmare movie, she's only in the good ones. She's in 1, 3, and A New Nightmare.
Yeah, she's also very good in that and plays a very similar role to what Jamie Lee Curtis and Neve Campbell do. So I can't disagree with you on that.
Shout out to Janet Leigh, obviously the first, also showed her bra in a movie. One of the first to ever do that. Drew Barrymore, sneaky in a bunch of
not bad.
horror things. Emma Roberts, another one that is a modern day.
More television, though.
More television, though, if you will.
the
Have
telly.
you ever heard of a TV?
How come? You know what? We should adopt the telly. Like the Brits. I like that. One of the few Brit terms I like. The telly.
And knickers for your socks.
Oh, hold on. I thought we had to hit the beep button there. Hold on a second.
No, is it for your underpants?
I don't want to broach the subject. You. I don't want to say that word.
I emphasize the CK in the middle there.
Okay. All
like
right.
knickerbockers.
Hey, if you're comfortable with it.
I'm going to cut that out of the podcast. Danielle Harris.
Yeah, that's a good one too. She had both young and older roles, so I accept that.
And then another modern day one, Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, she's been pretty good in multiple movies, so also a good honorable there.
Mac, let's kick flip off of that. Mount Rushmore, 4 best of Jamie Lee Curtis characters.
Now, we're mostly in agreement here, so I'll give you the 3 that we think are definitely on there. Laurie Strode from the Halloween franchise.
Yes.
And we talked about Arnold Schwarzenegger in True Lies. I'll tell you what, Jamie Lee Curtis is every bit as good as Arnie in that, if not maybe better, as his wife, Helen Tasker. She's also funny and sexy in that movie, which is very weird to think about Jamie Lee Curtis as sexy because it doesn't happen to me all that often, but she is in this movie. And then Goo, a movie that is on our short list of best movies from the last 5 years or decade or this century. Everything Everywhere All at Once. She won Best Supporting Actress, even though I don't think she's the best supporting actress in that movie.
Agreed.
She won that award for Deirdre Bobiedra. So put that on the list. And then 4th one here, she's been in a lot of good movies, a lot of fun movies. I want to give a shout out to her as both Tess and Anna Coleman from Freaky Friday.
I was between Freaky Friday for my 4th, but I leaned more towards Linda Drysdale from Knives Out.
See, I haven't seen that. I
know that you refuse to.
Yeah, no, that's a me thing. That's a me thing.
So also Wanda Gerwitz from A Fish Called Wanda. Nora Crank from Fryer's favorite Christmas movie, Christmas with the Cranks. Prom Night, The Fog, Kathy Munch.
Realistically, Wanda should probably be on this list. But that's the McAgoo list. Come on.
Yeah. So, Max, speaking of Halloween, let's forget about our last topic.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Trick or treat. I'm sure that you've heard us talk about this in the past. We've had quite the Halloween topics over the years.
Yes.
But we have mentioned costumes. We have mentioned going about trick-or-treating or going to costume parties. And let me ask you this, Mac, either as an adult or a child, can you give me your Mount Rushmore of Halloween costumes? Mind you, audience, we are both born in 1989.
So as a kid, I think I was the Red Power Ranger for like 2, possibly 3 Halloweens. That's on there. With a slash here, I've been the Green Power Ranger like 2 or 3 times in my adult life. So Power Ranger in general is on the list. The other adult costume, because again, I'm never buying another costume in my life. So it's either Green Ranger or this Wilfred. I've been Wilfred probably 3 or 4 times.
I think we need to talk about this more because we've mentioned it a couple times. I don't think we focus on it enough. Is that your evergreen Halloween costume is Wilfred the dog?
Yeah.
From the Wilfred television show on FX that ran 2 seasons?
Maybe it might have got a third.
Roughly maybe 30 episodes?
It's like wearing a sweatsuit. That's why I like it. It's fucking simple. It's easy. Just toss it on. Wear a little t-shirt and shorts underneath. Dynamite costume. And then my favorite one from my college career, because Halloween is probably like the biggest holiday of the college year.
Yeah.
I went to a kissing booth once in a little cardboard square around me, some shoulder straps, free kissing booth that actually worked pretty successfully. So I was a big fan of that. And then the go-to as a kid, because I didn't grow up with a ton of money, Goose. So the really easy thing was to just be myself as a hockey or football player, just wearing my hockey or football equipment, which is like a classic
for me,
poor kid move.
For me, I actually did win an award for dressing like Freddie Mercury from Live Aid one year.
Okay. All right.
It was stunning. It was dazzling.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
I won $200 and a day off from work.
Wow. That's a big win.
Yeah, it's a huge win. I believe I was Batman roughly 6 times in my childhood.
I think I had a Batman in there as well. Yeah.
But not only, I never got a Batman costume. I would just wear my Batman PJs.
With a mask.
No mask.
Oh,
face.
all right.
I didn't like masks. Not for me. And then in high school, maybe early colleges. It was either late high school or early college. Me and my buddy did Team Rocket. I was Jesse. He was James.
Okay. All right. That's pretty good. I like that.
That was pretty good. And then 2 photos. I have no memory of these ones, but 2 photos that I see of myself as a child during Halloween. One of them is me as a raccoon.
Which really ties into your story from the summer. That's a nice tie-in right there.
And then also one year, mind you, I was a singular person. Just by myself. There was no team costume here. I was one of the 3 Musketeers.
So I was going to ask, there's 3 Antonelli siblings. Did you guys go as the 3 Musketeers? But apparently not.
No. And all I can remember is that year, my brother actually won at a costume contest dressed as Al Borland.
With my current facial hair, this mustache and this little thingy thing, this little Dave Matthews under my lip here, I've been called D'Artagnan at work by a couple folks.
I wouldn't know what that means.
That's a 3 Musketeer character.
I was just one of the 3 Musketeers. Hey, Mac, speaking of Halloween.
Oh, happy Halloween, Goo.
Happy Halloween, Mac. I know that we've had an award-winning candy podcast, one of our first that really put us on the map, episode 49 of this show, 6 years ago, if you will, maybe 7. I don't know how time works. But as of right now, if I were to ask you for a Mount Rushmore, 4 best of candy to receive while trick-or-treating, what would it be?
Number 1 with a bullet is full-sized candy bars of anything. I don't even care if it's a candy bar I don't like. If you handed me a full-size candy bar, that's like you're winning the lottery during Halloween. That was always great. Number 2 is little packets of Skittles. Love those. Skittles is my favorite candy, so that's an easy one. And then I have one on the list here. I'm going to take that off because I realize, I'm a big
Yeah.
Milk Dud fan. 90% of my life's Milk Dud consumption has been a Halloween night, those small little yellow boxes, and then occasionally at the movie theater. So throw Milk Duds in there because it's the only time of the year I'm really eating them. And then Forgu, still don't know what they're called. Been around my whole life. You get them in your grandmother's apartment or Halloween. Those strawberry candies. I don't know what they are.
Oh, the hard
those
ones. The hard strawberry
candies.
candies.
Yes, those.
Which then makes me think of it's like strawberry and cream hard candies. Those are also delicious. You ever have those? Are those Withers?
I thought they were like fucking Halls.
They might be Halls.
When you get a cough.
But also when I first thought of, or when I first saw your list, I was like, does he walk around asking for strawberries?
They're just
Excuse me, sir. Can I have one of your
strawberry
strawberries? Have all your strawberries, please. Because you're British. People didn't know that.
That's
My
me.
4 go-to Halloween trick or treat. Like if I open the bag, I'm like, I'm going to eat these. Snickers, peanut M&Ms, Three Musketeers. Yes, we're going back to that. And Mr. Goodbars.
I think Three Musketeers is the most overrated candy on the planet.
love it. I love it.
There's
'Cause
just nothing to it.
If you take me and my costume and then 2 of those candies, we are now 3 Musketeers.
Like a Milky Way is a way better Three Musketeers.
No.
Yeah. Yes.
Also, shout out Reese's, Kit Kat, and Charleston Chews, but they got to go in the freezer first.
Okay. Sometimes you got the mini ones though, which is
Put them in the
really
freezer.
good. No, not the
Put 'em in
mini
the freezer.
ones.
Also, sneaky, put your M&M peanuts in the freezer too. Those are
Yep.
also delicious frozen.
It's short of the crispy M&Ms, which you can really only find in fucking Times Square now. Peanut M&Ms are my favorite version of the M&M, especially when frozen.
Max, speaking of food, happy Halloween. Can you give me your 4 best pizza toppings? Now, this can be a mix of toppings to make a specific kind of pie.
Okay.
But
So a
give me
style
your
of pie and or individual
I was
toppings.
hesitant on using the word style because then you're
Okay.
like, well, Detroit style.
Yeah,
well, it's this
okay.
style,
Sure,
that style.
sure.
So yeah, go ahead.
An order, I guess, for lack of a better
Yes.
term. So for me, all of the pepperoni. You can't put enough pepperoni on a pizza.
Pepperoni's number 1. It's
Yeah,
number
for-
1. Easily.
I get a pepperoni pizza 90% of the time. It takes I gotta have a weird day to order something else. I always get extra pepperoni, and now I see all these TikToks people send them to me about pizza places that do loads and loads of pepperoni. I need that in my life. Number 2 for me, my second favorite pizza pie is either some places do sausage, some places do meatball, but a sausage and ricotta or a meatball and ricotta pie, I fucking love.
So
Something about that combination of meat and creamy ricotta just works well.
I had forgotten about that. That is going on to my list as well.
I like
Some
that.
places, I believe Wegmans calls it a lasagna pizza. And it's still
it's a
meatball
similar
ricotta.
flavor profile. Yep.
Yes, it's
I
meatball
dig
ricotta.
that.
I also like cooked onions on it too.
I don't care for that, but you know what? I'll eat it if it's on there. The ricotta and meat combo is good enough for that.
Yeah.
And then these 2 are probably 2 of the more popular ones, but they're popular for a reason. Buffalo chicken pies.
Yeah.
Really, really good. Still, for some reason, I even saw a TikTok like 2 months ago, the place in Mortadella Head in Somerville, which is a pretty popular spot. They do a red sauce buffalo chicken pizza, which I think is so stupid.
No, just
The
look,
better
go
version-
cheese. It's
Yep.
very simple. Cheese,
Yep.
chicken, and then put some blue cheese on the top, or put ranch if you're into ranch. I don't give a shit, but go cheese, chicken, dressing.
Yeah, the base needs to be either the blue cheese and ranch, or you can even do the buffalo base, but don't
Yeah.
give me a red sauce base. That's
Agreed.
the best version of that pizza. And then go with chicken bacon ranch. But a caveat here, I've had some bad chicken bacon ranches. Number 1, often when you get bacon on a pizza, it's not cooked enough. So that's
Correct.
the first downside. Number 2, usually not enough ranch. Number 3, some places put chopped Tommies on here. I don't want tomatoes anywhere near my pizza pies.
So I would take the chicken bacon ranch off there, and for my 4th, out of the same other 3, by the way, I would either go with a meat lovers, but that's something you can only have 1 slice of.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. And then also, you can have more of this, and it's something that you might have to be in the mood for, but peppers and onions.
Yeah, we get Friday nights at the Firehouse is usually our pizza
Brag.
night. And traditionally, what we'll get is a pepperoni, a sausage, pepperoni, onion, and a buffalo chicken or the 3. Sometimes we'll switch it up in there, but those are the 3 staples of our order.
And then also, shout out, I think my mother is the only person that makes this. It is an artichoke and pesto pizza.
Huh. How how thin are the artichokes sliced?
I mean, it's just, I think what's in like the jar. It's the pre-jarred artichokes.
Okay. All right. Might be a
It's
little much for me, but
it's
I'm
good.
interested. I'm
It's
intrigued by it.
good.
Yeah.
It's very, very good. Hey,
I'll
Max,
tell you, anything your
speaking-
mother's
yeah.
ever made that I've tried has been good. So I'll try anything she makes.
Yeah, talk about my mother that way. Speaking of food, Mac,
Happy
can you
food.
give me a 4 Mount Rushmore best of? So top 4 of salad toppings.
So everything I just said about pepperoni, apply it to feta. There's not enough feta on anything. I'll eat all of the feta. I could just eat a box of feta, especially on a salad. It's my favorite salad
I guess
topping.
we're not counting meat here, by the way, because
yeah.
if it was counting meat, it'd be chicken, steak, pepperoni,
my
lamb.
my pepperoni salad.
Yeah.
Number 2, cucumbers. You know what my move is, Goo?
Yeah.
Is I'll get a Caesar salad, add cucumbers. I think it really diversifies the Caesar salad, and I prefer the cucumber crunch over the fucking heads of romaine. Number 3, croutons. Is sometimes, like I just said about the Caesar, back on the Greek salad with the feta already there. I'll add croutons to the Greek salad.
Yeah.
It's a good move.
Well, if you don't have a pita with it, because you need either a pita. If you don't got that, just toss some croutons in there.
Yeah.
You
Strong.
got to break it up. You got
Love
to
a
break
nice
it up.
crouton. And there are
Yeah.
some places, that make their own croutons, and that's even better.
Pepperidge Farm cheese and garlic croutons. I can eat those for days. If they want to sponsor us just by giving us bags of croutons that only cost $2 at the store, I'm fine with that.
When I was a kid, when we would eat out at like a fancy restaurant for whatever event, my
Mhm.
sister would ask for a side of croutons, just a
Nice.
bowl of croutons.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
And then the fourth one, I had a hard time having one that stood out to me, so I copied your
Carrots.
possible answer.
Fuck it. Who cares? It's
I like
carrots.
carrot strips. I like the strip
Yeah.
of carrot. I don't want the round carrot.
But I will say this, I hate cucumbers. I would
you
swap
really?
that out. Yeah, I don't like them. I would
That's weird.
swap that out with a cherry tomato or really anything firm. It has to be a firm tomato or I'm not going to eat it.
I like a cherry tomato, but sometimes you got to stab it and it goes flying off in the opposite direction at 1,000 miles an hour. It's a little bit of a dangerous prop there.
I will say this as well, is that I just got back from Rome. Brag. The tomatoes there are fucking unbelievable.
I believe that. It's tomato capital of the world, maybe, or tomato region capital of the world.
That's on the sign when you go in. Yeah. It's
San
tomato region.
Marzano tomatoes are like the ones that everyone wants. That's Italy.
And then also, speaking of salads once again, and putting pepperoni in your salad, there was a salad that we used to have as a kid. We would call it a New Hampshire salad because we would only have it at my Nana's house in New Hampshire, where she would take everything in the fridge and just put it into a salad bowl. There were
So
cheeses,
fitting,
pepperoni,
so fitting for New
ham.
Hampshire.
Yep.
We call it the Hampton Boardwalk salad.
Mac, have you ever heard of this show called Gen V?
Yes, I have. I have been enjoying it very, very much.
Same here. Also, The Boys. It's spun off from The Boys. I don't know if you've heard that or not. It deserves all the praise. I'm going to
It
tell you
sure
that
does.
right now. So if I were to ask you for a Mount Rushmore, 4 best, because it's a lot like The Rock that is in one of the Dakotas
Right.
of non-Marvel and DC superhero movies, could you give me a list?
Yeah, the two obvious entries for me, and I think for you as well. And this is probably a double box thumbs up Magoo 40 Dogger. The Incredibles is
Yes.
probably the best non-DC Marvel superhero movie. A close second for me would be Kick-Ass. I
Mhm.
might have that. It's probably like a 38, 39 dog movie. I love that fucking movie. From there, bit of a toss-up. I think what holds it in this Mount Rushmore is the church scene from Kingsman. It's
Yeah.
just an all-time great
I
scene.
like the training scenes too.
Yeah,
But
that's good too.
I just like Eggsy in general.
Yeah, the staying power of that scene though is prominent. So that makes my list.
I
And
might
then-
like every character in that movie, even with the stupid lisp. I like Samuel L. Jackson in that movie too.
And fucking Knife Legs there at the end. Or was
Knife
that the
legs.
second one?
Oh, but she is something else. Could you
Yeah, she
imagine,
is quite nice.
like, accidentally getting your,
Ugh.
chopped off?
No, I don't
by
want
accident?
that. Yeah. And then Goo, shout out Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She was in Ahsoka. The first time I ever saw Mary Elizabeth Winstead in something was a Disney Channel original superhero movie called Sky High. Shout out Will Stronghold. Kurt Russell's in this movie. But Mary Elizabeth Winstead plays the villain in this movie. Also, Cousin Greg is in this. It's a really, really good movie. I'll throw that on there as my fourth.
So I would also have The Incredibles, Kick-Ass, and Kingsman. Also, shout out Incredibles 2. That's another good movie as well. But I would put 1990s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles also on the list.
Yeah, all right, that's fair. I don't that if you didn't do that, you wouldn't be Goo. So that's
also fair. Honorable mention, shout out. First off, Mutant Mayhem. I also really enjoy it. I've watched that like 4 times since. It's been on Paramount. I really like that movie.
Okay, all right.
Scott Pilgrim also getting an anime release right now.
That would be on a lot of people's
good.
Lists. Yep.
Sin City.
Yeah, very
The
sexy
Mask.
movie. The Mask is a very good one. Yep.
Hellboy.
Unbreakable. Another one that I consider
Unbreakable.
as well.
I mean, you can also look at like a V for Vendetta, a History of Violence.
A History of Violence probably should have been on my list. Great sex scene in that movie.
You are obsessed with that sex scene.
I love that sex scene. I love Maria Bello. That's really what it comes down to.
Okay, Max. Speaking of Marvel, it was recently revealed that getting a fresh Rotten Tomato review is very important to movie runner, showrunner. It's not a show, but, franchise runner, Kevin Feige. Since the start of this podcast in 2015, 2016, I don't know when we started, what Rotten Tomatoes movie, so a movie that was given a rotten score, would you recommend to people? Give me a top 4, a Mount Rushmore, if you would.
So this is tough because I only started using Letterboxd going back to 2019. So I went through my list to see some rotten movies that I had ranked pretty high. So apologies to 15, 16, 17, 18. But there were 2 that stuck out. So I agree. You had 2 on your list that I'm going to steal. We can agree here on Renfield from earlier this year,
which is barely one of the failing ones. It's at 58%.
Yeah, it's barely counts. But you and I borderline loved it, and
but it's also with the caveat of like, look, you got to look the other way on a couple of the storylines. Don't pay attention to half the movie.
You're
Nicolas
watching
Cage
this for Cage.
And Holt are really good together in this
Which
movie.
I feel like when you're talking like rotten movies, you got to have the reason to watch it, and Cage is good enough for Renfield. And then Goo, number 2 that we agree on here is Bullet Train, which came out last year, which is actually a really fun movie. The ending kind of sucks, but
the ending
how
really
it's
sucks.
rotten blows my mind. There's like 4 or 5 great performances in the movie, and it's a blast. Really fun movie.
I would also have the live-action Aladdin movie on here. Got 57%.
Yeah,
and I think it's the best of the live-action Disney movies.
I agree, and adds an original song that I think might crack the top 10 Disney songs all time. Speechless.
And then I would also put a comedy on here, and one that maybe if I saw now I wouldn't find as funny. I don't know. But Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. That is at 38%.
Yeah, that's a solid one. It's not, I wouldn't call that movie hysterical, but it doesn't deserve a 38%. The 2 that I would throw on here, and this one's cheating because it's at 66%. So technically not rotten.
It's not rotten. It is just a tipped over popcorn thing, right?
It's that weird little window there. The Lovebirds, which came out in 2020, which obviously is the forgotten year of movies. It stars Issa Rae and Kumail Nanjiani. Really good rom-com. I don't know how it only has 66%. I thought
it has one of my favorite lines, one of my funniest lines from that year.
One of the best laughs of the year.
Getting the extra milkshake. Oh, you wouldn't get a pasta and they get extra pasta on the side. That's actually a really funny observation. I like
it's just those 2 have pretty good on-screen chemistry too. I'm just surprised that movie was that low. And then Goo, a movie I've been championing ever since 2019's Brightburn at 57%. Produced, written, directed by the 3 Gunn brothers, James, Sean, and I forget the third one. Essentially, the premise is what happens if a young Superman landed on planet Earth and didn't end up being that good. So there's a lot of fun scenes in that movie, and it also stars Elizabeth Banks as his mother and Roy from The Office as his father.
Also, shout out, these 2 movies are actually not rotten. They are fresh tomatoes. I think they're in the 80s as well, but no one saw them. And that is Brigsby Bear, starring, what's his name? Kyle Mooney.
I love
That's
Kyle
from
Mooney.
like 2019 maybe, but it's actually really good. It is a kid who is kept underground his entire life, and he watches a show that isn't real. It's something that his father produces, puts on tape, just to like make him think that he's watching something live, but in fact, it is just his father in a giant bear costume. And then he breaks out and he realizes that's not real. And it's a whole, it's awesome. I love that movie. And then also Ingrid Goes West with Aubrey Plaza.
There was a movie, now the name escapes me. It either came out last year or the year prior, where Aubrey Plaza plays like a con man. She's really good in that one too. I forget what that's called, but check that one out. Although I think
Ingrid
that has
Goes
like,
West.
I think that has
She
like
is
80%.
Yeah, Ingrid Goes West. She is a social media stalker, and she is following Elizabeth Olsen.
You're the
who
only
is like
human being
who's an influencer.
I have ever heard talk about Ingrid Goes West. I don't know how I haven't watched it yet.
That's very good. Mac, SNL just kicked off its 49th season. Ever heard of it?
This is the one category that I didn't make a list for because I'm all set with this one, Goo. All you here.
All right. Hey, let me go ahead and give you a Mount Rushmore of the most prolific cast member of all time, Chris Kattan, his top 4 SNL characters. Mango's an easy one. Bunch of reoccurring sketches here, such as Mango. Mr. Peepers. This is where he plays a half ape, half human, where he just spits up an apple. Todd the Goth Kid. There's a great one where he gets a Mickey Mouse phone when he's still not goth yet. Santa, thanks for the neat phone. And then it cuts to him as a goth kid. And Molly Shannon's like, what the? And then finally, Doug Butabi, who was not known as Doug Butabi on the show, but then given that name for the movie. But it is the Night at the Roxbury guy. Honorable mention to Gay Hitler. Good job, everybody.
By the way, strong start for SNL. Best SNL episode in a long time this past weekend.
I didn't think it was that great.
Really? You're just not a Pete Davidson guy. That's what it is.
That might be what it is.
That's 100% what it is.
Hey, Mac, this next question I didn't even have an answer for, but I'll just read it out loud because I put it on here.
This
Taylor
is
Swift's
insane, by the way, what's going on in movie theaters right now.
Taylor Swift's Eras Tour made almost $100 million at the box office in its opening weekend. Is there a band or artist that you would sit through a full 3-hour concert movie for?
None.
No one. No one.
I'll stay at home, watch the YouTube video, or I'll have seen the concert. There's not one artist on this planet that I think is worthy of getting what's going on here in theaters with Taylor Swift and the Eras Tour. There's actually been a great point on TikTok because there's a ton of TikTok videos of people putting up the crowds from these screenings.
Yeah.
Very Midsommar-like with these
it is.
spinning in circles and people wearing white. It is. Listen, this is not a Taylor Swift criticism, but I guess ipso facto it is. Her fans doing this type of stuff is why people hate Taylor Swift. It's cult-like. It's insane. And to your point that we both just made, there's not one person, artist, or anything on the planet that would drive me to this level of fandom.
Like, I could see myself if they put Nirvana's Unplugged in theaters for like a one-night thing with like the proper speakers and stuff, because it's what, 55 minutes?
Listen, I would love to hear Lake of Fire, see Lake of Fire on the big screen. I'm not getting up and fucking dancing around in circles holding hands with people. You shitting me?
Like, I enjoy that live concert that like Led Zeppelin put out that one time, but it was an hour long. I can watch an hour of those.
And again, more power to Taylor Swift. She's making money and people are going to see it, but it's also a catch-22. This is why people hate you.
Max, speaking of music and speaking of, I just went on a trip. I was on an airplane. I was able to watch The Little Mermaid on the plane, and I skipped through all of the music in the movie. Can you give me a Mount Rushmore, best 4 of Disney songs from movies?
So my number 1 with a bullet is A Whole New World from Aladdin. I think it's the single best Disney song. And I think it's actually a little bit underrated when you talk about Disney songs because Lion King shines so bright with so many standouts. Speaking of Lion King, pick your favorite one from there. It's probably Circle of Life for me, but you have Circle of Life, Be Prepared, and Hakuna Matata are probably the top 3. So pick one of those to represent the Lion King. And then Goo, I feel like you got to put a Moana song on here. Moana's the modern day equivalent to these younger ones. So How Far I'll Go or You're Welcome, I think, are
Feel the
both
wind
worthy.
and the sails in the sky, and
Great
it
song.
calls me, and no one knows how
How
far
far
I
I'll
go.
go.
I
I
love Moana.
I
Yes.
do find myself singing You're Welcome maybe more often, but How Far I'll
But
Go is probably a better
it's
song.
not like a great song
Yeah,
compared to
it's
the other
catchier.
ones, though.
It's sketchier.
It's definitely catchier.
How Far I'll Go, we'll put that on there. And then the fourth one, I'm just gonna run through some songs here. I have a hard time picking the fourth one. Um, Part of Your World
Okay.
from Little
Yeah.
Mermaid. It's a great
Yeah.
one. Undone the Sea, another good one. Pocahontas never gets talked about enough when you talk about these types of things. But Colors of the Wind, dynamite song. Just Around the River Bend is a great one. And then I mentioned earlier, the live action Aladdin introduced this song, Speechless, which I
Mhm.
think is the best moment of the movie. And she also sung it live on set, which is fucking crazy. Naomi Scott, shout out her. And then a couple other ones, You'll Be in My Heart from Tarzan and Surface Pressure from Encanto. By far the best song from that movie. I think really the only good one, the Bruno song I fucking hate. I don't know what I would pick for fourth goo. Maybe Colors of the Wind, Pocahontas. I'd lean for my number 4.
I think my number one with a bullet is Eye to Eye from Powerline in a Goofy movie.
Okay, all right.
Listen to the.
It's a good one.
I was at a wedding the other night, and the groom and the bride came out and danced to that. Did the perfect reel.
Really?
Yeah,
That's a cool wedding. That's a cool couple.
yeah. That was their intro.
I like that.
Yeah, I liked it too. And then Be Prepared, The Lion King. Do you know
Yep.
that the Jeremy Irons does not sing that song?
Oh yeah, I assumed he didn't.
Do you know who does sing it?
I don't.
Jim Cummings, the voice of Winnie the Pooh.
Wow. That is quite the range for Jim Cummings.
Now, keep this in mind. I might have just made that up.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a nice fun fact that you just made up.
Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. No one
It's a good one.
chokes on a belt like Gaston because he had that really thick neck, so
Yeah.
he can rip the belt.
You know, Be Our Guest is pretty good too.
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast has a lot of high floor, low ceiling songs. Very,
Then a
very
little off the beaten path, but I love the Rat Ratigan song from A Great Mouse Detective, The Great Mouse Detective.
Okay. All right.
Vincent Price.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And then you
R.I.P.
covered the other ones that I did as well.
Yeah.
Wow. We
Yeah.
only have one more left. What a time.
Wow. How about that?
I can't believe we made it this far. Mac, I have been attacked by targeted ads or targeted
By the fake news media.
pretty much by targeted posts in reels on Instagram recently or on TikTok of these old commercials for compilation albums from the 90s that you would see at roughly 3 a.m.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you give me a Mount Rushmore of weird commercials that you would wake up to either late 90s or through the 2000s?
I specifically remember one with like 80s soft rock with like Journey, REO Speedwagon. I remember one album being sold that I don't remember what year that was, maybe 2000, whatever. But that one sticks out to me for like late night CDs.
Yeah.
And then of course there was always the Girls Gone Wilds one. Sometimes you might stay up a little late for that if you know,
and then you realize there's nothing great in those ads.
Hey, it's good enough when you're 12 years old. And then one that I still quote to this day, and some people get, some don't. Set it and forget it. The Ronco rotisserie oven sticks out so vividly to me of just being on I think it was like a 15-minute ad that would be on a loop for an hour. So you'd see it like 4 times in a row at 4 a.m.
So I remember the sex hotlines that we would see
Yeah.
constantly.
Yeah, true.
Psychics.
Yep.
Call me now. Not
Yeah.
just her, not
Miss
just
Cleo.
Miss Cleo, but a bunch of psychics.
Yeah. Well, it started with Miss Cleo, and then from
Yes.
there it went off.
And then the 2 compilation albums that I cannot get out of my head is Pure Moods. This is from 1994. It had Enya. It had the hey, oh, night. You know that song?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
The X-Files theme.
Yeah.
Tubular Bells from The Exorcist. It's really setting the mood. Really setting the spooky mood. And then the ultimate dance party. Pump the Jams. It's a beautiful life. And then Wanna Be My Lover.
Yeah, love that. Shout out Spice Girls.
Well, I think it's just the Mel C version, but I might be
Oh.
wrong.
If you wanna be my lover.
And then also Ultimate Love Songs. Kenny G all over that one.
This doesn't quite qualify for the topic, but I also really enjoyed catching Talk Sex with Sue Johansson at like 1
Oh
a.m.
yeah. Well,
That was so good.
That and Bliss. Remember
Yeah.
Bliss?
Yeah.
The really super softcore porn that was on the Oxygen Network.
Good stuff.
Also, shout out to Adult Swim or maybe FX, where there was one time I woke up and on the TV there was some kind of a monkey puppet staring at me, and it really freaked me out.
I used to be able to get, now this was all times of day, but I would be activating it at night because no one was paying attention. I could get the Spice Channel in just right if I went above and back. You keep going over the channel until it catches it just right.
It was like a contra code.
What a
right.
time to be alive. Yeah, it was like a video game level you had to conquer to get it, and that was always fun as well.
Also, shout out to the DVD for season 1 of Modern Family that would just play the theme song on a loop if you had it on while you were sleeping. Dun, 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 dun. Hey, hey. Dun, 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 dun.
Some of the
hey.
Some of the scariest moments of my life, thinking in that same vein, is when The Office was on Netflix. The theme song was 30 times louder than the episode. So you'd fall asleep to watching The Office, and at 3 a.m. you'd wake up to the theme song just thinking you're under attack. It was horrible.
Let's get into Max.
And Max, that could be anything. It could have been this entire episode. So why don't you go ahead and check us out at trivia tomorrow night or tonight at Idle Hands Craft Ales, 89 Commercial Street, Malden, Massachusetts. The topic tonight or tomorrow or yesterday is friends.
And you'll get 5 free points if you have hard nipples poking through your shirt.
That, or if you just yell pivot at us, if you tell us that you're making fajitas, if you quote Ross, you have to quote Ross.
If you bring a pet monkey, actually, you can host trivia. I'll hang out with the monkey.
Yep, there you go. It's a trade. All right, Mac, where can the people find us?
You can find us on Twitter and on Instagram at Mac and Goo Podcast. Did you almost just fall over?
I was looking at my papers.
I thought you tripped. On every other platform, we are Mac _Goo. Mac Shift 7 Goo. That includes Facebook, Stitcher, TuneIn, Castbox, Spreaker, Google Play, iHeartRadio. We're on Spotify, but more importantly, we're on Apple Podcasts. Get on there, rate, review, subscribe, 5 stars. If you do that, the folks over at Watertown Sportswear will get you a free Mac and Goo t-shirt. That's Watertown Sportswear, watertownsportswear.com, expert screen printing and embroidery.
tpublic.com. Check us out at Idle Hands. Check us out at the end of the week for a news dump. And then next week, some spooky math podcast.
Math is just scary to people. We'll just be doing math. We'll be doing calculus next week.
I'll send you things ahead of time so you can do the math ahead of time.
Okay. All right.
So Tuesdays are Goose Days. I abuse kangaroos.
Bye.
Please flip the cassette over to side B to continue the adventure.